There are 10 things you must quietly eliminate right now to become powerful. And the most important instruction I can give you before we begin is this. Tell no one, not your friends, not your partner, not your followers, no one. Because right now, while you're watching this, something is happening to you that you haven't noticed. You are being held in place, not by your circumstances, not by bad luck, not by the economy or your background or the people around you. You are being held in place by you, by the things you're still doing that you should have stopped a long time ago, by the behaviors you've never questioned because they feel normal, by the parts of yourself you keep defending instead of destroying. You've been trying to build power by adding things, more knowledge, more connections, more hustle, more content, more strategy, more everything. And none of it is working the way it should. You pour in the effort and something feels off. The results don't match the input. The progress feels slower than it should be. Here's what no one told you. You don't build power, you uncover it. It's already inside you, compressed, pressurized, waiting. But you've been releasing it, bleeding it out through 10 specific exits you don't even know you have. Every single day without realizing it, you hand your power to other people through these 10 behaviors. And they collect it. And they use it. And you wonder why they seem to move through the world with an ease you can't replicate. Machiavelli understood something most people never will. He wrote that the first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. What he understood is that power is not found in what you announce. It is found in what you silently refuse. This video will show you 10 things to silently refuse, 10 exits to seal, and when you seal all 10, the power you've been bleeding out for years starts to stay. It starts to build. It starts to compound into something that other people will feel before they can name. But you must follow one rule. Do not tell anyone you're making these changes. Don't post about it. Don't tell a friend, I watched this video and I'm changing. Don't ask for accountability. Don't seek support. The moment you announce a transformation, you invite opinions. And opinions are other people's attempts to keep you the same. Execute in silence. Let the results speak when they're undeniable. The first thing you must quietly eliminate is broadcasting your next move. You tell people what you're working on, what you're planning, what you're going to do. Someone asks what's new, and you explain your whole vision. You're excited about something, and you share it before it exists. You describe the destination before you've taken a step. Every time you do this, you leak power in 2 ways. First, the people you tell give you a hit of social validation that tricks your brain into feeling like you've already done the thing. The announcement releases the same dopamine as the achievement, so your drive drops, the hunger softens, the urgency fades. You describe the win and your body started relaxing as if it arrived. Second, you give the wrong people a timeline. When they know what you're building and when you plan to finish, they can watch for failure. They can measure your gaps. They can use your own announced intentions against your confidence when the timeline slips. Here's how you eliminate this without anyone noticing. You don't announce you're keeping secrets. You just become boring when people ask. Still figuring things out. Nothing exciting yet, just working. Not mysterious, not evasive, boring. Boring doesn't invite curiosity. Boring closes the question. And while you seem like you have nothing happening, you are executing something they won't see coming until it's already real. If you tell people you're now keeping your plans private, they will pry, they will test, they will feel shut out and resent the new wall. But if you quietly become someone with nothing interesting to report, there's no wall to resent. There's just a person who doesn't seem to be doing much, until suddenly they are. Machiavelli wrote that he who does not lay his foundations in advance may with great ability lay them afterwards, although with inconvenience to the builder. What he understood is that foundations built in silence are stronger than foundations built under observation. Let them see the building after it stands, not the digging. That is the first elimination. Your next move. Share it with no one until it's done. But there is another exit you haven't noticed. One that doesn't look like a leak at all. One that looks like strength. What is it? The second thing you must quietly eliminate is reacting to disrespect publicly. Someone says something dismissive. Someone undermines you in a group. Someone takes credit, talks over you, or signals that they don't take you seriously. And you respond. You correct them. You defend yourself. You let them see that it landed. Every public reaction to disrespect is a transfer of power, complete and immediate. Here is the mechanism. When you react, you tell the room that this person has the ability to move you, that their opinion about you matters enough to require a response, that their behavior has weight. You just confirm their importance by treating them as a threat worth responding to. Powerful people do not respond to disrespect publicly because they are not threatened by it. Not because they have more self-control, but because they genuinely do not process disrespect as a threat. Their identity is not vulnerable to the opinions of people who have not earned the right to shape it. Here is how you eliminate this without anyone noticing. You don't announce you're above reacting, you just stop. Someone takes a shot at you in a meeting, you smile and continue. Someone makes a dismissive comment about your work. You nod slightly and say nothing. You continue at your own pace, at your own volume, as if the comment was a noise in the street that you passed without turning your head. The room will notice. They always notice. And what they will register is not that you were insulted, but that the person who tried to insult you achieved nothing. That perception redistributes status in the room in your favor without you saying a single word. If you announce, "I don't respond to disrespect anymore," you invite tests. People will now specifically try to get a reaction to see if the claim is real. But if you just quietly stop reacting, there is nothing to test. There is just someone who cannot be rattled. And people who cannot be rattled are quietly feared. Machiavelli wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. What he understood is that composure under pressure signals the kind of inner strength that cannot be faked. React and they own you. Stay steady and you own the room. That is the second elimination. Public reactions to disrespect. Stop them quietly. But there is another leak that runs even deeper. One that operates through the people closest to you. What is it? The third thing you must quietly eliminate is cheap loyalty. You are loyal to people who knew you before you became what you're becoming. Old friends, old colleagues, people from your past who are comfortable with the smaller version of you. And you keep that loyalty because it feels like integrity, because abandoning them feels like betrayal, because longevity feels like it should count for something. But cheap loyalty is a leak disguised as a virtue. Every time you shrink yourself to fit a room you've outgrown, you pay a cost. Every time you stay in conversations that pull you backward, you spend energy that cannot go forward. Every time you protect someone's comfort at the expense of your own growth, you have made a trade, and you are losing that trade. The people who are comfortable with the old you are not doing anything wrong. They simply have no interest in the new you, because the new you makes them uncomfortable. Your ambition is a mirror they don't want to look into. So they subtly pull, they make jokes, they question your changes, they call you different, like it is an insult. And if you let them, they will slowly negotiate you back to a version of yourself that no longer threatens them. Here is how you eliminate cheap loyalty without anyone noticing. You don't cut people off, you don't have the conversation, you don't explain that you're evolving, you simply redirect your energy. You become harder to reach. You decline more often. You stop initiating. The relationship slowly loses temperature. Not dramatically, not with a scene, but the way a fire goes out when you stop feeding it. If you announce you are outgrowing certain people, you create enemies out of people who are simply becoming irrelevant. But if you quietly reduce the oxygen, there is no enemy. There is just a relationship that faded the way most relationships eventually do. And no one can point to the moment it ended. Machiavelli wrote that, "One who deceives will always find those who allow themselves to be deceived." What he understood is that a clean exit without confrontation is not dishonesty. It is intelligence. The relationship ended. You just ended it without announcing the ending. That is the third elimination. Cheap loyalty, fade it quietly, but there is another leak that is costing you more than lost friendships. This one is costing you your edge. What is it? The fourth thing you must quietly eliminate is performing your struggle. You let people see the process, the late nights, the frustration, the setbacks, the grind. You share the behind the scenes because it feels authentic, because vulnerability is valued, because showing the work seems humble and relatable and real. But every struggle you perform gives the wrong people information they should never have. Competitors learn your pressure points. They see where you are straining and they press there. Manipulators see where you are depleted and time their moves accordingly. Well-meaning people offer help, that comes with strings or advice that plants doubt. And everyone watching begins to unconsciously associate you with difficulty. And difficulty does not inspire confidence, it inspires pity. The most dangerous thing about visible struggle is what it does inside you. When you perform the grind, you reinforce it. Every time you say, "This is so hard," your nervous system agrees with you. The narrative you perform becomes the narrative you live. Here is how you eliminate this without anyone noticing. You stop sharing the process and you start sharing only results. Work in private, struggle in silence. When the result is ready, you surface with it. Calm, unrushed, as if the whole thing came easily. Not because you are lying, but because the difficulty is yours to carry, not theirs to witness. People will begin to perceive your success as inevitable. They will call you talented when you are simply disciplined. They will call you lucky when you are simply invisible. That perception is an asset. Protect it by never letting them see the cost. If you announce that you are now grinding in private, people become suspicious. They wonder what you're hiding. But if you just quietly stop sharing the messy parts, there is nothing suspicious. There is just someone who always seems to show up with results. And results are the only thing that matter. Machiavelli wrote that everyone sees what you appear to be, but few experience what you really are. What he understood is that your appearance is a resource. Deploy it strategically. Show only what serves you. That is the fourth elimination. Visible struggle. Keep it private from now on. But there is another leak still draining you. One that you probably defend as honesty. What is it? The fifth thing you must quietly eliminate is unfiltered opinion sharing. Someone asks what you think about a person, a situation, a decision, and you tell them. Honestly, completely. You give them your real read on things because you value honesty and you trust the person, and it feels good to say what you actually think. Every unfiltered opinion you share is a liability you create with no return. When you tell someone what you think about a third person, you give them a weapon. If they ever turn against you, or if the third person ever becomes important to you, your words are already out there with their name on them. When you share your real opinion about a situation, you anchor yourself to a position that may need to change, and changing it will cost you credibility. When you speak too freely about what you think, you become legible. And legible people are manageable. Power requires a degree of opacity, not dishonesty. Opacity, the ability to hold your read of a situation inside while gathering more information. The ability to listen without the other person knowing exactly what you think. The ability to be in a room where people do not know whose side you are on until you decide it is time for them to know. Here is how you eliminate this without anyone noticing. You don't announce you're being guarded. You simply replace opinions with questions. Someone shares a situation. Instead of, "I think X," you say, "What do you think?" Instead of agreeing or disagreeing, you ask what they mean by that. You learn more, you reveal less. And people who love to talk about themselves and their ideas will leave conversations thinking you are an excellent conversationalist, while you have handed them nothing. If you tell people you are now more private with your opinions, they become paranoid. They wonder what you're really thinking. But if you just quietly become more curious than opinionated, there is nothing to be paranoid about. You seem interested, you seem thoughtful, they feel heard, and you have retained every card you were holding. Machiavelli wrote that a wise man will keep his affairs secret and not announce them unnecessarily. What he understood is that silence is not an absence of power. It is the accumulation of it. That is the fifth elimination. Unfiltered opinions. Swallow them. Replace them with questions. 5 eliminations. Broadcasting your plans. Public reactions to disrespect. Cheap loyalty. Visible struggle. Unfiltered opinions. These 5 alone, if you seal them quietly starting now, will change how people experience you within weeks, not months. Weeks. Most people never close even one of these exits. They live their entire lives wondering why their effort doesn't compound, while every gain leaks out through these 5 holes. But these were the visible ones. The ones close enough to the surface that once you see them, you can't unsee them. The next 5 are buried deeper. They are the exits you don't recognize because they are disguised as strength, as wisdom, as self-awareness. They are the ones operating right now while you think everything is fine. And they may be the most expensive leaks you have. What are they? The 6th thing you must quietly eliminate is timeline anxiety. You are impatient with your own progress. You watch the pace of other people's success and measure yourself against it. You expected to be further along by now. You feel the pressure of time passing. The sense that if you don't arrive soon, you won't arrive at all. And that anxiety leaks out. In the questions you ask, in the decisions you rush, in the energy you carry into rooms. Timeline anxiety is a signal. It broadcasts that you are not yet certain of your own arrival. And people receive that signal at a frequency below conscious awareness. They don't think this person is anxious about their timeline. They just feel somehow that this person has not fully arrived, and they treat you accordingly. Here is how you eliminate this without anyone noticing. You stop measuring yourself against other people's clocks. You create one reference point, the version of you from 6 months ago. Are you ahead of that person? Then you are on time. Because your path has a pace that belongs to it alone, and forcing it to match someone else's rhythm produces inferior versions of what you are building. Practice moving with deliberateness rather than urgency. Urgency signals scarcity. Deliberateness signals certainty. The person who moves slowly and precisely through a room is not in a hurry because they know they will get what they came for. Become that person. Not as a performance, but as a reality. You build from the inside. Machiavelli wrote that the one who adapts his course of action to the nature of the times will succeed. What he understood is that timing obedience, moving with the right pace, not the fastest pace, is a form of intelligence that most people sacrifice for the comfort of appearing busy. That is the sixth elimination. Timeline anxiety, move with certainty, not urgency. But there is another leak even more damaging, one that is costing you the quality of everything you're building. What is it? The seventh thing you must quietly eliminate is misplaced trust. You trust people before they have earned it. Not naively, you're not reckless. But you give trust on the basis of how people present themselves, what they say about their intentions, how long you've known them, or simply because you are the kind of person who sees the best in others. And that trust, given before it is earned, is a leak that costs you time, energy, information, and sometimes your reputation. The mechanism is simple. When you give trust before it is proven, you move openly. You share information. You lower your guard, you assume alignment, and misaligned people who are using you, positioned against you, or simply indifferent to your interests, operate freely inside that openness. Here is how you eliminate this without anyone noticing. You separate warmth from trust. You can be warm with everyone, friendly, generous with your attention, present in the conversation. But trust, the willingness to share real information, to depend on someone, to align your moves with theirs. You extend only to people who have demonstrated through consistent action over time that they deserve it. Warmth is free. Trust is earned. When you implement this quietly, nothing changes in how people experience you socially. You are not colder, not more guarded in any visible way. You are simply more accurate about who you share what with. And that accuracy stops the bleeding. Machiavelli wrote that men are less careful about offending one who makes himself loved than one who makes himself feared. What he understood is that warmth without discernment is a vulnerability. Being liked is fine. Being trusted by the wrong people is expensive. That is the seventh elimination. Misplaced trust. Be warm with everyone. Be open with very few. But there is another leak that is even more intimate than this one that is operating inside your own mind. What is it? The eighth thing you must quietly eliminate is defending the old version of yourself. Someone from your past references who you used to be, a habit you had, a belief you held, a choice you made, and you feel the pull to defend it, or, at minimum, to explain it, to make the old you sound coherent, to create a narrative continuity that makes sense to the person in front of you. But the old version of you is not your responsibility to defend. Every time you defend the person you were, you re-inhabit them. You slip back into a frame that belonged to a smaller version of yourself, and you bring it forward into the present. You give it current oxygen. And the people watching this happen get confused about who you actually are right now, because you yourself seem confused. Powerful transformation is not a story. It does not require a coherent before and after. It does not owe continuity to anyone. The person you are becoming has no obligation to make sense to the people who only knew the person you were. The only version of you that matters is the one operating right now. Here is how you eliminate this without anyone noticing. When the old version comes up, you don't defend it, and you don't perform distance from it either. You simply respond from the present. Yeah, that was a long time ago. And then you move forward. No explanation of the evolution, no accounting for the gap. Just a person who is clearly, calmly, irrevocably located in who they are right now. If you announce that you've changed, you invite interrogation of the change. People will test whether it's real. They will look for cracks. But if you simply are different, without announcement, without justification, there is nothing to test. There is just a person who does not match the memory they had. And they will quietly update their model of you without you ever having to request it. Machiavelli wrote that it is not titles that honor men, but men that honor titles. What he understood is that identity is not inherited from your past. It is expressed through your present behavior. Be the person now. Let the past be irrelevant. That is the 8th elimination. The old version of yourself. Stop defending it. Let it go in silence. But there is one exit remaining. The most hidden of all. The one that makes all the other leaks possible. What is it? The 9th thing you must quietly eliminate is the need to be understood. Not approved of, understood. You want people to get you, to know what you meant, to recognize your intentions, to understand where you're coming from. And when they don't, you explain, you clarify, you give context. You try again in different words. You stay in the conversation longer than it deserves because you cannot leave while someone has the wrong impression of you. This is the master leak, the exit behind all other exits. Because when you need to be understood, you explain your decisions and lose the power that silence would have kept. When you need to be understood, you stay available to people who need reassurance and drain the scarcity that creates your value. When you need to be understood, you react to disrespect. Because being misread as someone who can be disrespected is intolerable. When you need to be understood, you share your plans, so people can see your intentions clearly. When you need to be understood, you defend the old you, because leaving it unexplained feels like abandonment. Every leak in this video has this one at its root. The hunger to be understood is the engine that reopens every door you try to close. Here is how you eliminate this without anyone noticing. You build an internal court. Every decision, every action, every choice. You judge it yourself, not harshly, not self-critically. You simply ask, does this align with where I am going? If yes, it is judged, done. No external verdict needed. Over time, the court inside you becomes the only one whose opinion changes your behavior. And when that happens, the need for external understanding dries up. Not because you killed it through discipline, but because it has nowhere to go. People will sense this shift before they can articulate it. They will say you seem more grounded, more confident, less bothered. What they're actually sensing is someone who has stopped asking the world to confirm them. And that quality, that self-containment, is the most powerful thing a person can carry into a room. Machiavelli wrote that the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. What he understood is that the need for external understanding is the trap. The person who requires the world to see them correctly is always one misunderstanding away from losing composure. The person who confirms themselves requires nothing from the world to remain steady. Become that person. That is the 9th elimination. The need to be understood. Build the court inside you. The 10th thing you must quietly eliminate is the version of yourself that still waits for permission. Not from a person, from life. You are waiting for a sign that you are ready, waiting for the conditions to be right, waiting for someone to recognize what you're building before you commit to building it fully, waiting for momentum to find you before you generate it. That waiting is the final leak, and it is the most expensive one. Here is what is true. The version of you that is powerful enough to deserve the life you want is not arriving. It is not waiting for you at the end of the journey. It is the thing that gets built by moving as if it already exists. Every action taken from the assumption that you have already arrived accelerates the actual arrival. Every action taken from the assumption that you are still waiting extends the wait indefinitely. Here is how you eliminate this without anyone noticing. You stop asking if you're ready, and you simply behave as the person who is, not performatively, practically. The decision you've been delaying, you make it. The boundary you've been hesitating on, you hold it. The version of your work you've been calling almost ready, you release it, not recklessly, deliberately. As someone who knows that readiness is built through action, not granted before it, no one will know you made this internal shift. They will just see someone who moves differently, who decides faster, who does not seem to be asking the room for permission before acting, and they will treat you accordingly. Machiavelli wrote that one should never fall in the belief that you can find someone to pick you up. What he understood is that the person waiting for rescue never becomes worth rescuing. The person who moves without waiting for permission becomes the person others eventually ask to lead. That is the 10th elimination, the version of you that waits for permission. Begin without it. 10 eliminations. Broadcasting your next move, reacting to disrespect publicly, cheap loyalty, visible struggle, unfiltered opinions, timeline anxiety, misplaced trust, defending the old version of yourself, the need to be understood, waiting for permission, 10 exits through which everything you've been building has been leaking, 10 behaviors that have been transferring your power to other people quietly, daily, without your awareness. Now you know where the exits are. In 6 months, if you seal these quietly, not dramatically, not with announcements, not with accountability partners, the people around you will feel a change in you they cannot explain. You will seem more certain, more settled, harder to move, harder to read. The kind of person who doesn't need the room's approval to walk through it. They will try to put words to what's different, and they won't find the right ones. Because the transformation happened below the surface, in the silence between who you were and who you're becoming. They had their chance to keep you small, when you were explaining yourself, when you were broadcasting every plan, when you were reacting to every slight, when you were performing the struggle and defending the past and waiting for permission to begin. You didn't give them a warning, you didn't ask for their blessing, you just closed the exits, one by one, in silence. And by the time they noticed something had shifted, it was already done. That is how power is built. Not announced, not performed, not posted about, built. If you are still watching this, it is because you already know the version of yourself that is possible. Write in the comments, I move in silence. Let's see who here is truly ready. And watch the next video. It will matter more than you expect.